Okay, so. How do I move this forward? Oh, here we go. Okay.
So the first step in this process is to know some key dates for the spring session. This is for the spring primary session as well as the inner session. This is our registration timeline. So our class schedule becomes available starting next Monday. It's available online. That's October 26th. So mark your calendars. And at that point, we'll be flooded with questions from students because they'll actually be able to see all the classes that we offer in all the various formats and links. Then on October 29th, students will be able to view their registration appointment in their MySD CCD account. That's their student portal where they can view it. It will be emailed to them as well. November 9th and 10th, we have priority registration for our special populations that qualify. Those are DSPS, EOPS, CalWORKS, former foster or homeless youth, active duty military, veterans, and athletes. And Kirk will go over those priority groups in the next slides. Then we have on December 11th, we have high school registration. So they are still within a priority range for registration, those who have qualified for priority registration. We will actually be enrolling them manually. The admissions team does that, but in order to do so, the students need to submit their forms through our online processing system called JIRA, and that's on December 11th. Then we move to open registration. For all the people that didn't get their applications in on time by our priority registration deadline, they then register for classes beginning on December 14th. Then January 4th is when intersession classes begin. And then February 1st, we have a late start spring semester this year. February 1st is when our primary session begins. Thank you.
I see that Sherilyn has a question.
Yes.
I wanted to make sure the high school and open registration, is that December or November?
Let's go back to that.
Back up the slide one, Alice.
It's December.
It's
Okay.
December because that is the very last day of the priority registration appointments.
Got it. Okay.
And I forgot to mention, if you do have questions, feel free to put them in the slide, or, this is a small group, so you can also, raise your hand. We'll try and answer those questions as we go along.
All right, everyone. Now, in terms of our priority enrollment system, this is consistent with our state law in terms of providing priority to our students in some fashion. So as you see here on this particular slide, we've identified how our groups of students will come in through our system for registration. As Dana pointed out earlier in the previous slide, first day of our spring registration is going to be on November the 9th. During our priority registration, she also identified our groups of students who are considered our underrepresented students and are provided with the opportunity to enroll in classes first. So our group 1 students, as you see here, will have first opportunity at registering for classes. Now, I'm going to go into a little bit of how these groups are also broken down in our next slide. But in group 1, we have a listing of students that will be able to register on that particular day. And the registration is kind of staggered in terms of different times. Our group 2 student priority is for continuing students who have completed at least the orientation, the assessment, and educational plan, an educational plan. Now, this is what we call our matriculation. For those individuals who have completed group 2, now group 2 also has to be completed within a certain time. So for this spring, the deadline to fulfill the orientation, assessment, and educational planning is actually this Friday, October the 23rd. Okay. Our group 3 students are new and returning students who have completed also the same 3 components: orientation, assessment, and have an educational plan on file. Group 4, again, are continuing students, new and returning students, and these particular individuals who have not completed all 3 of those particular components. So again, those 3 components become very important in terms of providing you maybe, it can be a day or 2, it could be a few hours, but again, it staggers the registration by even having those 3 components complete. Group 5 goes into our students with 100+ units. And as it says here, it does not include basic skills. One of the things that our college has done is make sure that students who need those particular basic skills, those particular courses do not affect their particular priority. And also it doesn't affect too much with their aid in certain programs. Group 6 is for our students with a baccalaureate degree. So students who have fulfilled a bachelor's degree, who are returning back to the community college system, those individuals are placed in group 6. Group 7, students who have been academically disqualified or disqualified through lack of progress, and have not yet returned into a good standing situation. So if you are any part of group 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but you've been disqualified, you will go to group 7. Group 8 is students concurrently enrolled in high school, and that was mentioned in our last slide. In terms of high school students, do have the last option in terms of registering for classes. Any questions on our priority groups?
I have a question. For what's the timeline between like priority 1, like group 1 and then group 7? Is it like a 3-week difference? Like what would be kind of like the timeline?
Reggie and Dana, do you all have the exact timelines? There is some type of registration, I think, appointment sheet that may come out that identifies that maybe. But between 1 and say 7, it can probably, or I would say 6, probably be close to the last couple of days of priority registration. But I want Reggie and Dana to speak on that.
It all depends on the number of appointments that we actually assign, because we could have anywhere from about 90,000 to maybe 120,000 appointments, depending on how many people qualify. So generally, yes, it's about a 3 to 4 week span.
Okay.
Thank you. Now, in terms of this next slide, these are the ranges of units that also are used to determine a student's priority and within a group. So if you see the first highest priority for students is those individuals who have 50 to 72 units. Now, the priority is given to those individuals who are close to completing a degree or preparing for transfer. So as you increase your unit load, you become a little bit more important in terms of our priority. So as you get closer to completing, we want to make sure that those particular courses that may be your last few courses are available to you. The second group in terms of the range is going to be those individuals with units 30 to 49.9 units. Again, you've been taking a lot of courses. You are now halfway or close to maybe 3/4 completion. And again, you become looking for specific courses, and we want to make sure those particular options are available. Our third group falls into those students who have 15 to 29.9 units. And again, those individuals may be able to have additional maybe general education courses that can be included in those major course requirements. Our fourth group of individuals is going to be our new students, 0 units to 14.9 units. And if you fall in that range, then again, your priority comes into that particular area, depending on the group that you fall into. Our fifth group in terms of range is for those individuals who have completed 72 to 89.9 units. Now, as you increase the units now over 60, you're coming to that point of 72. Our district looks at in terms of you've had opportunity to complete coursework, and they begin to drop your particular priority status. And the last group, as you see here, students who have 90+ units, those are going to be the individuals that will be able to register in the last portion of the group that they qualify for. Any questions on these ranges and how this is looked at in terms of students who fall into the priority groups? All right. And Reggie is going to talk a little bit about our seamless registration experience.
So generally for a student to have a smooth registration time, we recommend that they plan ahead. Some of the issues that should be addressed for the students to have a seamless registration experience is residency. Residency is determined when a student applies to the college. Every person who's married or over the age of 18 or older and under no legal restrictions may establish residence. May establish residence. A California resident is someone who has resided in the state of California for more than 1 year prior to the residency determination date or residence determination date, and shows intent that they plan to make the state of California, their home. Generally, after student applies, it all depends on how they answer the residency question on their application. If they are a non-resident, they are sent an email stating that they are a non-resident and they are subject to the $290 per unit tuition fee. If a student is a resident and they may have checked something on the application by mistake, they need to contact the admissions office and we'll get them in contact with the residency staff person to have their residency updated or adjusted. We want to clear any holes that they have, disqualification, outstanding balances, a hold that's called ATV. Is it ATV? The one for the high school, they need to turn in their high school transcripts.
The ability to benefit, yes, I believe
ability,
so.
that's it, ATV, ability to benefit. They want to make sure they clear all their holds, because when if they try to enroll, they will get an error message saying they have a hold on their record. Generally, they need to contact the admissions office so we can get them in contact with whatever office they need to get in contact with to remove their hold. If they're enrolled in upper level courses, they need to make sure that the prerequisites are input on their account. Prerequisites are courses that must be complete with a C or better prior to registration to specific courses. They have to have a proof of prerequisite of completing that prerequisite, and they can do that through an unofficial transcript, official transcript. They can also, if they feel they have the knowledge, they can also challenge the prerequisite, and that all goes through, well, challenging the prerequisite goes through the admissions office. Showing proof of prerequisite, that goes to the counseling office. But they want to make sure they have that that information on their account before they register. Again, outstanding balances, that could be balance from previous semesters or student representation fee, which is a fee they can opt out of. They want to make sure that is taken care of. And as far as high school admissions requirements, all high school students have a hold on their record because they are not allowed to enroll in courses on their own. They must be enrolled by an admissions staff person. As well, I'll fill out another form if they're just a high school student that's not a part of the CCAP program or MOU. They have a dual enrollment form that needs to be filled out, as well as the regular application. So high school students want to make sure that's taken care of if they want to be enrolled in college classes. For students who aren't sure what they need to take, they really need to see a counselor as soon as possible so they can determine what their interests are, what classes they want to enroll in, and be able to look in the class schedule and get all that ready ahead of time. So when their registration date comes up, they're ready to enroll. And that's about it. Just don't wait to the last minute. That's what we tell all students. Wait until the last minute. You'll end up not getting the classes that you want because classes fill up really, really quickly, starting from the first day of priority registration. So are there any questions?
I just have a comment. Sorry. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I just had one question which I've come across while working with the students. Students move, like they are taking, maybe they're in the last semester or they move due to COVID and things like that. And then if they move out of state, then their residency is in jeopardy, right? Like they may not be considered as resident and they might not have changed their information in their portal saying that now they are from not a California, but an Arizona, let's say, resident. How do we have any check balances in those cases, or we just assume that they all are resident? This is just just for my understanding, because I did come across a couple of students that they said, oh, we moved. I'm like, okay, you have laptops and things like that needs to be returned. So I just wanted to see if there is any insight on that too.
There isn't any. Go ahead, Dana.
So residency, it doesn't get recalculated until, or reassigned until you are required to complete a new application. As long as you're in continuous attendance, we don't look at your residency again and say, now prove to us that you're still here in California. However, we have some checks and balances in our system. If you're receiving financial aid, they need to have up-to-date information regarding you. If they, and I don't know much about financial aid, but I know that sometimes, you know, you cannot be receiving, let's say, a Board of Governors grant if you've moved outside of California. So they catch that, and then we work together and we notify the student. The other thing is we are not permitted to actually teach in certain states. We don't have agreements with them. So So we have a query that we can run that would determine whether or not somebody is residing in one of those states. And then we need to notify the student, we need to drop you from the classes, or is there something else going on? Is this a correct address? Potentially, sometimes they're only living there for a short period of time, like during a break, and then they're coming back to California. So there's a lot of factors with residency. So it's not just like a one size fits all, but we do have some things in place behind the scenes to catch, you know, and I don't want to say catch, but basically ensure that we are meeting the education code.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Natalie, I see you had a question.
I do. So I'm a project assistant at Dean Jesse Lopez's office, and I usually manage the student inquiries. I've received a few emails from students that are part of the military, and sometimes they ask me if they receive in-state or out-of-state tuition. Should I direct them to the financial aid office or the Veterans and Military office?
The Veterans and Military Office or the admissions office.
Okay, thank you.
So
And,
for military, there are some exemptions if they're, just to give you a little bit of a background, if they are stationed on active duty in California, but they're deployed, let's say outside the United States, then they can retain their $46 per unit as a California resident. Sometimes if people, you know, they have no affiliation with California, then they would be charged non-resident tuition. Some people are in the military, but they retain California as their home of record. And so therefore they can be considered a California resident. So again, it's complicated, and definitely our Veterans Affairs Office or our military education can assist with that.
Yeah, one of the things also just to include is if active duty, if they get orders to come to California, they definitely can establish that California resident during their time here. Some individuals don't change their taxes. Now, their spouse can be affected by that as well. So there, as Dana said, there are definitely case-by-case situations that you want to be aware of, but students can establish residency as active duty military if they do have orders stationing them here in California.
And then another thing is when the active duty member, let's say they move outside of California, but the child remains here in California, within the Higher Education Act, there is the ability for them to retain their residence in California as long as they're in continuous attendance. Once they actually break that attendance, let's say they stop attending one semester, then they would revert to a non-resident.
So Natalie, please refer them to the Veterans Office or the Admissions Office, because there's a whole bunch of different scenarios and it gets a little complicated.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any other questions?
One of the things I also just want to discuss is, and Reggie stated it, just the preparation is very important. You know, you can't be too soon to begin working on registration. As we kind of looked at in the timeline, you know, students will be generating maybe appointments sometime next week. The 23rd, which was stated earlier, is our deadline, and it's not on this slide, but this Friday marks our deadline to complete those particular components, which is required for all students, again, through our student success initiative and providing students those three components: orientation, assessment, and educational planning. Now, there are some other situations that students may find themselves in. For example, students who have a bachelor's degree, who are in, if you go to that next slide, Alice, group 7 or group 6, students who have over 100 units. You know, sometimes we may find some of those students who are in those particular groups and they are looking at trying to complete and they can't find those particular courses that may be available to them. We do have a petition process for some of those students who are looking at trying to improve their priority registration. So if you do have students who are have a bachelor's degree, they've been trying to enroll in maybe an anatomy course, 1 semester, 2 semesters, they've been unsuccessful. There are petition processes that we can assist a student and provide recommendation to help those students in those particular situations. So again, we do try to have some support. We know that some students can fall through the cracks for various reasons, life experiences and situations that many of our students deal with. So we don't want everyone to get lost in the system, and we do have some things in place, some stopgap measures to assist students and try to put them back on the right track.
I have a question, Kirk. Thank you for bringing that bachelor degree thing component into it, because in child development, we do see a lot of students with foreign credentials, already bachelor's or master's, but they are coming back to community college to start from the scratch. In some cases, those students do not have degree in hand. Because of political reasons, they cannot go back. They have no access to their records. There are so many variations I see in their reasoning behind not holding the degree. They are having the degree, but they do not have physically the degree. So what do we consider those students as? That they have a bachelor degree, but they are going to start all over again because they are going to start with associates or things like that. And they are, because they cannot prove their degrees in the United States.
Yeah, those, I think that's, I mean, there's many cases, and I think it always depends on what the student's objective is. So, you know, we begin there. What is the student's objective? What is their goals? What is their educational plan? Rekha, you know, with child development, even students with degrees, if you're looking at working with children, you got to get a credential, you got to get a permit, you know, so we begin with what is the specific objective. If we can assist students in terms of capturing some of their records, then that may be something that we try to do. You know, we do have an evaluation process if needed with child development. We do know that many, if we go through an evaluation agency, that we can identify, you know, coursework if we do have transcripts. But for those who do not have transcripts, that's a tough situation. You know, I don't think that there's any solution to that at this particular time. I know that there's the new Title V code that is now providing educational credit for experience, previous experience and previous work that individuals have done. And maybe through that particular process, students can earn credit in that ways, and that's still being ironed out. So we don't know exactly how that will finalize. But I mean, you bring up a big issue, Rekha, because yeah, there's, without documents, it's difficult to have any of those individuals earn credit.
So meanwhile, they would that affect their priority registration? Let's say if they cannot prove their documents, they do not have transcripts, will they be moved above from group 6 to go start like a fresh student?
Well, yeah, actually, yes. If you have international transcripts, our district now does not look at evaluating those transcripts if not needed. So we really have now, again, measures that students do not have to use their foreign transcripts meaning that we can remove them from the system if they've identified themselves as having a bachelor's degree from another country. We can remove that. We can remove that information where it doesn't affect their groupings for priority registration.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
The other thing that I wanted to bring up as far as being prepared for registration is we are going to be implementing drop for non-payment for spring of 2021. So it's really important that students get their finances in order, know how you're going to pay for your classes, and make sure that you contact financial aid right away to find out whether or not you'll have aid to pay for those classes. Because once the drop for non-payment comes around, if you haven't paid for your classes, you're going to lose your spot in that class. And like Reggie says, you know, it's unfortunate when you've planned ahead, you've gotten your priority for registration, and you've gotten that anatomy class or whatever class that's impacted, and then you lose your seat because you haven't figured out the payment part of it. And that's what we used to see a year ago when we did drop for non-payment.
And if you are dealing with any students who may be in that situation, we do have payment plans now, and many of those particular services can be sought at through our student affairs. Dean Cheryl Bernard is someone that under her direction assists and supports students who may need that payment plan. But just an FYI that they are requiring payments to be completed prior to that next semester registration. So we do have opportunity for students to stretch out those payments, but yes, students will be required to make those payments prior to registering for new classes.
Any other questions? We have a lot of time. And just to know, in the chat box, we put the flex credit number if you're applying for flex credit.
Sorry, I have another question because I had a student last night and she had a problem financially and she cannot afford to pay for the 3 units class in business that she's taking. So what can I suggest to her? To contact Dean Bernard for the payment plan? Is that what should I suggest to her? What would you advise?
So is she currently in classes and she has an outstanding balance?
Right now, she doesn't have any. She's a returning student. She was with child development, but now she is moving away from child development and trying to come back to business and entrepreneurship side. So I was just trying to get to her why she is leaving child development and trying to get to her. So I had an appointment with her and she says that she cannot afford to pay for 3 units class, you know, with her current circumstances. So if she goes in spring, she hasn't taken any classes this semester. So what would you advise?
I would definitely recommend that she completes the financial aid application. If she's not enrolled this fall, she can still complete the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. That's for the 2021 school year, and determine whether or not she can qualify now for the California Promise Grant, which will waive her tuition. If she still qualifies for that, they can waive her tuition up to all the units that she enrolls in. They could also determine if she qualifies for a Pell Grant, which is the federal grant, and that could be some additional funds. If she's looking at being a full-time student or at least 9 units, there is the EOPS program, the Extended Opportunity Programs and Services, that also can assist her and provide maybe even some funds for books. So those would be my recommendation at this particular time for support with tuition.
Again, she has already is holding a bachelor's and
Oh,
degree
she's
from
holding a bachelor from.
yeah, she's already holding, and she is trying to. She has taken some classes in child development a couple of years back. Then she took a break. Now she's coming back, but she doesn't want to go back to child development. She wants to get into business and entrepreneur side of it. So she is
Yeah, I'm
already
sorry.
holding. So promise program and other things may not be her
Yeah,
thing, and she may not be having a big educational plan as such of really getting maybe a certificate maybe of business. I'm not sure how she's going to go. I referred her to Tanya yesterday because I couldn't go further into, and I gave her the counseling appointment, all those kind of links
yeah.
to make
Well,
it.
I would recommend that she reaches out to financial aid to see if there are any scholarships that she might be able to
Okay.
receive.
Thank you. I will do that. Thank you.
And then the last option, if depending on her circumstance, but there are loans available.
Natalie had a question.
Yes. So if let's say I have a student who's interested in the aviation program and they already have prior experience and want to challenge a few units, is there anyone specifically in the counseling office that I should direct them to, or just the counseling office?
Just the counseling office would be fine. In our aviation liaison right now is we do have a liaison, Lisa Clark, but you can refer her to, you could refer the student to anyone in the counseling department. Regarding credit by examination, if that's what we're talking about, the student has experience. Some students may have a private pilot license or various things like that. Then yeah, we would have to go through some petition process to get those particular courses approved or credited. Did that answer your question, Natalie?
Yes, thank you.
So if, I don't know if we have any more questions, but we do have our contact information here if you want to reach out to any one of us. Also, another good resource is just to go to refer students to our websites. Many of us have several different services we'd like to offer. So, and that's posted on our websites. And some key takeaways that we'd like you to have, tell your students that to be mindful of the emails that we send. I know we send out a lot of emails, but they're very important. They provide dates, especially the registration dates. They'll let students know if they're missing a matriculation component, such as the orientation, assessment, or their education plan. So we're trying to prepare them ahead of time for their registration. Be mindful of any holds they may have. Address those holds before registration happens, not after or during. And especially in this remote environment, reach out to us if they need assistance prior to registration, because although everything's remote, things are taking much longer. It's taking a lot longer for our counselors to respond to students and as well as the staff. So if you can do anything, tell students to prepare ahead of time. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to add?
I don't have any questions, no more questions, sorry to God. But I do want to extend my gratitude, and I want to thank the counseling office and the admissions office, who, whenever I have reached out to these departments, they have helped me right away. Like even in these remote times, the services, I know it has been delayed and there's so much going on, but Dana, Reggie, Kirk, Marianne from counseling office, I just want to shout out to them and say that thank you so much on behalf of Child Development Department.
Thank you, Rekha.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us today. And, you know, I think this is obviously recorded, so we will have it available if you'd like to share it with your students or other staff members.
Thank you.
We'll
Thank
have
you
a
so
wonderful-
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.